Hello Winnie Game fans, December is always a smaller month for new releases, so I did not miss that many, but we do have our usual lot of 1.0 releases, one very interesting demo, and a number of interesting tactics and strategy titles from the new indie games that I missed in December. We kick off with the 1.0 release of Eternal Radiance, an anime action-adventure RPG that looks absolutely great. You play as a young squire who wants to become a knight, having to pursue a thief and a mysterious artifact that was stolen in order to do so. Interestingly enough, this is from a Taiwanese developer who seems to be funded by Patreon, so it's an interesting business model for indie developers to consider. Combat is fun if fairly simple, with a decent story to keep things moving, and as someone who appreciates shorter games and don't have the time for a 60-hour JRPG, this fit in quite nicely for me.
In a polluted world, where animals replaced mankind, where a dome protects the rich and the poor struggle to survive, lives a detective.
My magnifying glass.
Out of the ordinary.
Stop it! Don't break my door!
Oops.
That's it. You're mental.
When classic adventure.
Hey, leave the old man alone.
None of your business. Get the heck out of here.
Meets beat 'em up.
Enough. You're gonna regret it.
A clever mishmash of ideas is BROK, the InvestiGator, releasing a free Prologue demo, so there's no harm in checking out this point-and-click adventure game crossed with a beat-em-up. I do like the art style, very cartoony and well done, with brawling action that looks good as well. This contains the first chapter out of 6 in the full game, planned for winter 2021, so do check it out and wishlist the main game if you're interested.
Clues to uncover the truth.
See this?
Our government. Silly human.
Welcome. You mean the circular saw?
Face your destiny.
You're gonna make it. I promise.
Liar.
What kind of detective will you be?
Ruff Night at the Gallery is a free horror title set in an art gallery where you're exploring the locations, finding keys, admiring the paintings and such, but of course, there are spooky ghosts around. The dog versions of classic paintings are fun to look at, with this coming to us from one Casey Donnellan, who you might know from Kill It With Fire. Bring Meltdown into Despair as a 2-character precision platformer title where it is not a co-op game, but rather has you controlling both characters at the same time. Similar to games like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, having 2 characters is always an interesting concept to wrap your head around since your brain takes some time to get used to this, so add to that the precise platforming and traps and you have quite a difficult game. I do love tower defense titles, so 3-minute heroes did get my attention, combining Plants vs Zombies style lane defense, deck building elements, a roguelike structure, and an art style that looks kind of like battle block theatre. There are various heroes here that you can use, all of which can be individually upgraded, and add to that the 3-minute round structure and you have a compelling game. Now that I think about it, it does seem very similar to Retropolis in some ways, so it does have me intrigued and is currently in early access with more content to come. Now this game may not look like much, but Leaf Blower Revolution, idle game, has got quite a bit of momentum, recording 3,000 Steam reviews and a rating of overwhelmingly positive. It's a title where you use various tools and implements to rake leaves, but then some weird stuff like defeating enemies comes in. It's an incremental game in that it is all about numbers going up, and there's just something very compelling about this genre that has got its hooks in me. Normally, I would not have put the Conquest of Go on the list since it's another digital version of the classic board game, Go, but does have a meta layer which looks interesting. Since the game is about territory control after all, this does have you battling for control over a world map in different scenarios and battles, with resources to be earned and abilities to be purchased. Sure, it's not as pure as the main game, but it does provide some variety, and once the basics are down, perhaps that will get more people into the original. Morkredd is another puzzle platformer that uses light and shadow, but does impress with the visual style and the fact that it is meant to be played in co-op. I always take a look at Metroidvania titles, and one of interest is GoldFish Brain. Similar to Feudal Alloy, but where your goldfish is controlling a very human body, explore the facility, get upgrades, fight bosses and so on, with a simple but clean looking pixel art style that's a neat entry. The roguelike auto-battler has been an up-and-coming subgenre, with this year alone having a number of entries that I can think of, and one of the most polished ones is Tavern of Gods. Seems like such a natural fit in hindsight, where you're strategically building your party, getting loot, managing synergies and resources, upgrading your heroes and placing them in formations, all complemented with the procedurally generated roguelike structure. Still in early access but a good first step, I'm waiting to see how this evolves down the line.
There once was a girl who was trapped in the dark, with naught but her shadow for company. A journey to escape she did embark, and her shadow followed distrustfully. She ventured and climbed, fought with tooth and nail, straining to escape a world of nightmares.
Add one more light and shadow platformer to the list with Shady Part of Me, one that looks similar to the recently mentioned Iris Fall in concept, but does have a creepy, haunting art style. It's not as scary as something like Dark, and does not have challenging puzzles or platforming, but it's a story about emotional struggles and is a touching, introspective narrative journey. To be honest, I have certainly seen other indies doing something very similar in this space, but based on peer reviews, it seems to be well received, so perhaps check it out. Calico was another surprise launch and is a cozy live sim title where you're running a cat cafe. It's a little janky and weird when I played it at launch, and it's strange in that the game allows you to just roam around and capture stray animals and to bring them back to your cafe. Animals can be ridden as mounts or even sit on your head, depending on their size, but the game overall does give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. I hesitated to put Monolithic on the list since I did come across it while browsing new releases, but I caved since I do want to see some sort of renaissance with the RTS genre. It has you representing a god and his followers and waging war on another, with units represented by idols and there being god powers thrown into the mix. Not the most detailed or animated entry, but given that it's free to play, perhaps give it a look. A title which I was high on did hit 1.0 in the roguelike tactics title, The Wind and the Wilting Blossom. Of course, the most immediately striking thing about this is the art style, using a look similar to classic Japanese paintings, and it's a tale of traversing the land and battling yokai. It's similar to one of the earliest titles covered on this channel in Shigatori, but adds in turn-based tactics on a hex grid, but to be honest, I was instantly sold based on the look alone. some interesting roguelike mechanics due to the equipment system, unlocks, recruitable characters and run-based design, so certainly a title not to be missed. The developer of Ho Ho Home Invasion did reach out to me, with the impetus being, we realized that there aren't very many Christmas video games, so here we are. It's a stealth title, interestingly, where you play as Santa trying to sneak his way around an elf training facility to deliver presents but not get caught. And for a free title, why not? The next title is a very interesting entry since Unsung Story is from the mind of one Yasumi Matsuno, whose most notable work includes Final Fantasy Tactics and Vagrant Story, and was a title kickstarted in 2014. However, development was troubled since the original developer ran out of funds for this game in 2016, with the current developer, Little Orbit, picking up the pieces in 2017. What then resulted was this December 2020 early access release on Steam for this turn-based tactics title, released without much fanfare, not getting much attention and sitting at mixed reviews. It does look okay though, although I would have to get hands-on, but it might perhaps end up becoming a cautionary tale against crowdfunding. Warring States is another title that made it out of early access after about 2 years, and if you cannot already tell from the footage, it's a grand strategy title set in the Warring States period of ancient China. However, unlike many of the Sunguo titles, this was made by a developer in Guildford, with some developers that I presume are of Chinese descent based on their family names, so it may be a lot more accessible, at least in terms of translation, grammar and writing. Looks pretty good visually and is one for fans of the genre. One more early access graduate of note is Founder's Fortune, a colony sim where you need to manage a village of gnomes. There are towns to build, crops to grow, animals to raise, and a ton of different occupations to specialize in, and it's a very well made one of these. Despite the cutesy exterior, there are survival elements as well, becoming especially critical during winter, so there is some challenge. But the extensive research tree and the overall polish of this, helped by the revamped visuals, will certainly help in this case. A monochrome title of interest is Hell's High Harmonizers, a life sim adventure title which is about life in hell. Monochrome is very difficult to get right in games, but I do think it works here, with good pixel art and being fitting for the theme as well. We close off with Nefasto's Misadventure meeting Noeroze, which I might be pronouncing wrongly, but this meta point-and-click adventure game does seem to be criminally overlooked. The publisher did reach out to me, and the first thing that I told them was that it was a bad idea to release on the 30th of December, so I'm doing what I can to help. I do like the art style, and the glitchy setup could be interesting, looking like it has a nice variety of inspirations which results in different areas and gameplay elements, and does seem well put together. Still in early access, which is planned for 6 months, with more storylines, endings, bosses and game modes to be added, but with the spot on art style, it takes the #1 spot. To see more of the big picture, check out these awesome videos, and I will see you after the jump.